Welcome back to our channel, dedicated to bringing you the most intriguing political stories from around the globe. Before we delve into the tumultuous rise and fall of George Santos, we'd like to remind you to hit the like button if you enjoy our content. And if you're new here or haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. This way you won't miss out on any of our upcoming stories. Now let's dive into the story of George Santos, a charismatic figure whose political career took a shocking turn, exposing a web of lies and deceit that shook the political world. From his rapid rise to his dramatic fall, we will explore how Santos navigated his political journey and the scandal that ultimately led to his expulsion. Reverend George Santos was expelled due to a shocking revelation that shook the very foundation of his political career. It was discovered that Santos had lied on his resume, a scandal that sent shockwaves through the political community. This was not just a simple exaggeration of skills or experiences, but a deliberate and calculated attempt to deceive. The immediate reactions to this controversy were mixed. Some of his colleagues expressed shock and disappointment, while others chose to stand behind him, mentioning the requirement for due process. The public was divided, with some feeling betrayed by Santos's actions and others suspecting a smear campaign by his political rivals. Despite the controversy, Santos managed to maintain his position, shielded by the narrow Republican majority in the House. However, the scandal had already tarnished Santos's image, casting a long shadow over his political career. Now, to understand how this fall from grace came to, we must journey back to his rise to power. The political landscape buzzed with excitement when George Santos emerged as a new player. With a charismatic aura and what seemed like an impressive resume, Santos rapidly ascended the ranks within the Republican Party, winning over many supporters. His credentials appeared to be noteworthy, with a range of achievements spanning multiple industries. He was heralded as a rising star, a refreshing change in the world of politics. But the adage, "not everything that glitters is gold," rang true for Santos. Behind the image of a successful public figure were lies that would later lead to his downfall. His initial success, however, was just the beginning of his complicated political journey. The House found itself in a difficult position. How could it deal with a member who had lied about his credentials? With this conundrum, the House was thrust into a whirlwind of legal and procedural constraints. It turns out, dealing with such behavior isn't as straightforward as one might think. You see, the House does have tools at its disposal. For instance, it can exclude a member with a simple majority. But this option was taken off the table by the Supreme Court back in 1969. Another tool is expulsion, a more severe measure, but it requires a 2/3 supermajority and is rarely used. The House can also opt for a censure or reprimand, a symbolic rebuke, which can be done with a simple majority vote. But the real power lies with the House Ethics Committee. This committee can conduct investigations and recommend punishment. However, getting a majority to agree on such measures is no mean feat, and members are often hesitant to pass judgment on their colleagues. So, with these limited tools in hand, the House attempted to deal with the Santos situation. The Ethics Committee began its investigation, and the House tried to exclude Santos. However, these efforts were met with resistance from the Republican majority. Santos found himself shielded by his party, with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy standing behind him. The House's attempts to exclude Santos were, to put it mildly, a tough sell. Republicans showed a surprising tolerance for behavior that was previously considered unacceptable. This tolerance, coupled with the narrow Republican majority, made it seem increasingly likely that Santos would serve out his term. Despite the controversy, Santos was protected by his party and seemed likely to serve out his term. But as we'll see, this was far from the end of the story. However, the tide started to turn against Santos when the Department of Justice filed additional charges against him. This was a pivotal moment that began to shift the balance of power. The charges, which were not mere allegations but serious accusations, raised questions about his fitness to serve in the House of Representatives. As the legal noose tightened around Santos, his party faced a conundrum. On one hand, they had a duty to uphold the integrity of their institution. On the other, they had to consider their party's political interests. Caught between a rock and a hard place, they had to make some tough decisions. Despite the mounting pressure, Santos remained defiant. He stood his ground, refusing to step down. He saw these attempts to expel him as nothing more than political bullying, a tactic used by his adversaries to tarnish his reputation and force him out of office. He was determined not to let them win. This was the third time the House had tried to remove him, and each time Santos fought back. He defended himself against the allegations, insisting that he was innocent until proven guilty. He believed that resigning would be tantamount to admitting guilt, something he was not prepared to do. The Republican Party, while initially standing by Santos, started to waver in their support. The charges were severe, and the evidence against him was damning. It was becoming increasingly difficult for them to defend him, and they knew that their continued support could potentially damage their party's reputation. Yet, the expulsion process was not as straightforward as it seemed. It required a two-thirds supermajority, a difficult feat to achieve given the divided nature of the House. Santos, being the astute politician that he was, knew this and used it to his advantage. He was confident that he would survive the expulsion vote, relying on party loyalty to protect him. Santos believed he would survive the expulsion vote, but he was mistaken. This was the turning point, the moment when Santos's political career began to unravel. The charges, his refusal to resign, and the wavering support from his party had all led to this moment. His fate was now in the hands of his colleagues, and they were about to make a decision that would change the course of his life forever. Finally, the House took a vote on Santos's expulsion, and the result was decisive. The expulsion vote, a rare occurrence in the House's history, was carried out with a recorded 311 votes in favor, 114 against, and 2 abstentions. This was the 6th time a member had been expelled from the House, and the first time it happened without a federal conviction or ties to the Confederacy. The significance of Santos's expulsion cannot be overstated. It was a clear message that the House would not tolerate dishonesty and misconduct. The decision was met with a mix of shock and relief, with politicians and the public alike closely following the developments. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not mince words, calling Santos a coward for leaving the House chamber before the vote ended. Santos's actions during the vote added another layer to the drama. In a move that shocked many, he left the House chamber before the vote was even completed. This departure was seen as an act of defiance, a refusal to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. But Santos's expulsion was not without controversy. Some saw it as an act of political bullying, while others viewed it as a necessary move to uphold the integrity of the House. The public opinion was divided, with some expressing sympathy for Santos, while others celebrated his departure. However, regardless of where one stands on the issue, one thing is clear: the expulsion of George Santos marked a significant moment in the House's history. It served as a stark reminder of the high standards expected from those in positions of power and the consequences that await those who fail to uphold them. Santos's expulsion marked a significant moment in the House's history. Santos's expulsion was a significant event, but what were the consequences? Following the expulsion, reactions flooded in from all corners. Within his own party, there was an air of mixed emotions. While a few continued to stand in his corner, many Republicans expressed relief, acknowledging that the episode had been a stain on the party's image. Public reactions, as expected, varied widely. Some applauded the move, viewing it as a long overdue act of accountability, while others saw it as a political move aimed more at scoring points than upholding integrity. For Santos himself, the immediate aftermath was a period of turmoil. His political career, which once held promise, was now in jeopardy. He proclaimed his innocence and painted himself as a victim of political bullying, but the public, by and large, remained skeptical. His trial, set for September 9th, 2024, now looms over his head like a dark cloud. A conviction could effectively end his political career. The implications for the House are more complex. On one hand, Santos's expulsion has set a precedent. It has shown that the House can and will act when a member's actions cross the line, even if it means navigating murky political waters. On the other hand, the Santos case has highlighted the House's limitations in dealing with such issues. The struggle to garner a two-thirds supermajority for expulsion, the hesitancy of members to judge their colleagues, and the perceived tolerance for behavior once deemed unacceptable all point to a system in need of reform. In the broader context, the Santos saga is a wake-up call. It's a reminder of the importance of truth, accountability, and integrity in public life. More than just a political scandal, it's a stark illustration of the consequences when these values are compromised. And it's a call to action, a prompt for us as a society to demand better from our elected officials. Santos's expulsion serves as a reminder of the importance of honesty and integrity in public life.